Thank you to all my channel members, including my fan appreciation level members and my contributor level members, for helping support the YouTube channel. Hello, and welcome to my channel. My name is Jonathan Cohn, and today I have my book review of the book Star Wars: Luke Skywalker and the Shadows of Mindor. I apologize if you can see all of the problems with my copy. I bought this used, and I really wasn't paying attention to how beat up it was. I was just looking for a used copy to find to try to complete the collection. So, anyway, I read this book as my journey to trying to finish 100% the EU this year, and I have a very unpopular opinion of Matt Stover's books because most people I know love his books, and I so far have not. I read the first of his that I read was Shatterpoint, and I just didn't like Shatterpoint at all. It has this very specific style that just does not work or resonate with me in any way. I just find it boring. I find it frustrating. I find it just not appealing at all. So I just did not care for Shatterpoint. And then I was reading through the New Jedi Order a few years ago, and I got to Traitor, which is everyone else's favorite, not everyone, but most people's favorite New Jedi Order book. And for some people, it's their favorite Star Wars book. And I even know a few who it's their favorite Star Wars story. My brother-in-law, this is his favorite Star Wars story. And I didn't like this. This was my least favorite New Jedi Order book. And so it's not a least favorite EU book. There's some way worse. But anyway, I just didn't care for it. So Matt Stover was 0 for 2. And I also read the Revenge of the Sith novelization. So it's not like it's a novel that he wrote, but rather it's an adaptation of George Lucas's screenplay. And I guess this one I liked the most of all of them because I think that he's faithful to George Lucas's story. He does add quite a bit, and I liked some of the additions, but just his style just does not agree with me for some reason. So I was already over 3 really with Matt Stover's books, and I was hoping that his batting average would be redeemed with Luke Skywalker and the Shadows of Mindor, and I was like, oh, maybe it's a Luke Skywalker story. Maybe that'll work better than one of these other stories that he's told. And unfortunately, his record is now 0 for 4 for me because I did not care for Luke Skywalker and the Shadows of Mindor. In just about every category, the book just didn't connect with me. The writing style is still just a very odd writing style from Stover's part. I thought the villain just was way too convoluted. I thought that the main character, Luke Skywalker, didn't exactly feel like the main character, Luke Skywalker. And then I felt that the story for Han and Leia was pretty weak, even though they were written well. And then I was very frustrated with the payoff of the book versus the promises. So those are like the 5 main categories I need to talk about. So I'll start talking about the writing style of the book. It is very much a similar writing style, I would say, to that of Shatterpoint, and the way that he writes action and the way that he writes characters. Just it can work for Star Wars. It's just not a style that is appealing to me. It is, I think, slower than it needs to be. I think that it is kind of almost, I would say, video game esque in some ways, and for some people maybe that works, but for me it just doesn't. And I didn't like the way that the action was written in the big battle scenes because like he has some cool ideas. That's the thing that's frustrating about Stover is he has some cool ideas. The destruction of the battle cruiser towards the beginning is a brilliant idea that just the execution of it was just so odd. When I was reading it, I was like, wait a second, that's it. The way he did it was just so strange. And then some of the battle scenes just were kind of strange, and the way that Luke dealt with the villain of the book, Shadow Spawn or Chronal, that was all kind of strange. So just the writing style just didn't work. Then you have the villain, Shadow Spawn, Chronal. He has Carvaster. He has so many names in this book, and he has a convoluted backstory. Apparently he's a big character in the comics. Apparently he has some connections that are from all these other things. And anyway, the character was just weird, and he was hard to define and hard to understand. I understood, on the back of the book they tried to make an image of what the character looked like, but it didn't click in my head, and the way that he was so complicated in his writing in such a short period of time because he's not really introduced much until about midway through, and even when he's there, he's not always there, and it just didn't work. It very much felt, I would say, like a comic book villain. And when I say comic book, I just mean just Star Wars comic books, although I think he does originate from those. I'm talking about like like the Marvel or DC comics, where you have these villains who have gone over years and years of story, years and years of changes and stuff, and they go by this name in this comic and this name and this thing, and they've had this history with the characters, and it just did not work at all. I really wanted a straightforward villain, and when the book started, for the first like chapter or two, when it was kind of describing the planet of Mindor and describing who they were going to go up against, I was like, okay, I can take this. When I read the premise on the back of the book, I was like, I can take this, and then it just was way too convoluted and confusing and not appealing. Then you have the Han and Leia stuff. One praise I will give Matt Stover is I think he actually did a pretty good job with Han and Leia. They very much felt like Han and Leia's characters. They very much felt like they had a good banter. I liked their relationship in this book, but their story was very much sidelined and, in my opinion, kind of shoved in to be included because he needed an excuse for Leia to be on Mindor as well, and he needed use, I think, of the Falcon. When I say he, I mean Matt Stover needed use of the Falcon in the story, and so they have they are there on the planet. It just didn't feel like they were really a big deal. It felt like it was just like a side story, and it just didn't work for me. And I you know I would have just not included them at all, and I would have done the thing that you needed Leia for some other way, because it really felt like she was just kind of tacked on. Then you also have the stuff with Luke. Luke just did not feel like Luke Skywalker. Luke can be brooding in the books, certainly, but and especially in the EU, he has this element of I'm going to take charge and I'm going to do the right thing. And in this book, he is constantly second guessing himself. He is constantly just refusing to fight when obviously the solution is to fight and not even, he doesn't even have to kill anyone, but as long as he just fights, he can save the day. And he's so reticent to, and it just does not feel like post Return of the Jedi Luke in this book, and so that was just kind of frustrating. I actually wrote in my review that this book felt like it was trying to be a Bantam era book, even though it was written during the Del Rey era. It was felt like it was trying to be that Bantam era book, like the I Jedi's, like the Crystal Star, like the Callista books, like New Rebellion. That's not the greatest company to be in because I don't think the majority of those books fell flat, at least for me. I mean, New Rebellion I thought was pretty good, and I Jedi was fine, but it's that's not the best thing to be aiming for. And unfortunately, I think he actually hit what he was aiming for in terms of matching those books stylistically. If this book just had a Banamera cover, I think it would have fit perfectly. Although I do like the cover. This is done by Dave Seeley, who is one of my favorite living cover artists. He does a good job with this cover and the back portion of it too, despite the damage that my book has. Then the book has a promise in the prologue that is made, and I'll go ahead and spoil what the promise is because again, it's right at the beginning of the prologue, basically, and and what that promise is that Luke Skywalker is guilty or feels guilty because he thinks he killed a lot of innocent people on Mindor, and that's after the battle. And so then the whole book is a flashback to show you what happened on Mindor, and then you have the epilogue of the book, the debriefing as it's called, and you're supposed to get this. What did the investigator think of Luke Skywalker's actions? And in my opinion, Matt Stover completely punted on the premise. And so the payoff of the beginning, the whole point of the book is did Luke Skywalker actually commit war crimes? And it is technically, I guess you could say, addressed, but not enough. It should have been handled in a much more direct way. Instead, Matthew Stover takes that and decides to put the focus on something else, basically a running joke throughout the whole book. There's a running joke about throughout the whole book about the hollow thrillers, which is supposed to be basically like movies, and the epilogue, rather than be a true debriefing, a true finish to the investigation, it is basically a setup for a joke or a series of jokes about holo thrillers. And I could see people arguing, oh, well, it's actually dealing with the premise. He's just trying to do it in a more cutesy way, but it just didn't work for me. And so, like, I wanted to like the book, and I would have been willing to, and I even was interested in the premise, but the execution just didn't work for me. Certainly, there are way worse Star Wars EU books. There's certainly Star Wars way better. So it's kind of in the middle-ish of the pack. I would give it like a 4.5 out of 10. So it's on the negative side, but it's not horrible. When compared to the other Matt Stover books, I liked it better than Shatterpoint, I guess. And it's probably on the same level as Trader for me. It's been a while since I read Trader, so I don't know which way I would go on it. But I do think Revenge of the Sith is the only one that I thought was okay. The only one that I didn't think was bad. But still, that's not a good. Like it's not, I don't think it's a great book or anything. So it's sad that his batting average is just so weak for me. So that is my review of Luke Skywalker and the Shadows of Mindor, which, by the way, awesome title. I know it sounds cheesy. It almost sounds like a movie title almost. I actually quite liked it. And I wouldn't have minded if there had been a series of books that were Luke Skywalker and the blank of blank, Leia, not Calrissian, Leia Solo and the blank of, I would have been okay with those, but just not this book. So if you've read Luke Skywalker and the Shadows of Mindor, what do you think about it? What do you think of Stover's books overall? Am I crazy for not liking him? I do have one of his books, Heroes Die, on my shelf, which I do intend to read eventually, just to give his fantasy books a try. Maybe his fantasy will work better than his Star Wars tie-in books, but so far he's 0 for 4. Let me know your thoughts in the comments section down below. And until next time, I'm Jonathan, and thank you for watching.